Northern Myanmar may be the end of telecom fraud, but it is not. The starting point of the telecom fraud. Gathering is a pile of shit. Scattering is a sky full of stars. This sentence is actually the best description of the telecom fraud industry that spilled over from the island of Taiwan. Telecom fraud that has formed an unbreakable bond with Northern Myanmar. Founded in Japan in the 80s, developed on the island of Taiwan at the beginning of the century. But behind the telecom fraud, not only have there been countless bloody and tearful memories of victims, but also there is also an undercurrent of regional games. Many people may wonder why they rarely hear news of telecom fraud overseas. In recent years, most of the victims of telecom fraud are also Chinese. In fact, the reason for the frequent occurrence of telecom fraud in China in recent years, on the one hand, it is behind the rapid development of China's economy. It spawned a large number of speculators who wanted to make quick money. On the other hand, it is the basis for the survival of telecom fraud. High savings rates are also unique to East Asia. However, in fact, the origin of telecom fraud is not China. It has many similarities with today's China. Japan 40 years ago, after the end of World War II, under the massive investment from the United States. Japan has experienced a period of rapid development of 30 years, when the time came to the 80s of the last century. Japan has become the world's second largest economy. The domestic life is extremely prosperous. The inhabitants are also quite wealthy. However, behind the scene of debauchery, there is a huge crisis hidden, population aging as early as the 60s. Japan's total fertility rate has fallen below 2.1, at the same time as the economy is developing rapidly. Japan's total population reached its peak in the late 70s. The degree of aging has also deepened over time. A period of rapid development has brought great wealth to the older generation of Japanese. However, the disintegration of traditional families also leads to a large number of elderly people with abundant wallets, facing increasingly lonely lives in the 80s of the last century, coinciding with the first golden age of the global information industry. After having a complete communication network, many young people who want to make a quick buck, naturally, they are ready to use new technologies to leverage the wallets of the elderly. Telecom fraud has since emerged as the first batch of telecom fraudsters in the world. The Japanese are the founders of almost all telecom fraud routines. Later, the trick of pretending to be an acquaintance and demanding a transfer of money in China was invented by the Japanese. Known as I cheat, the young people pretended to be very nervous, calling the victim using an eager tone and vague address to imitate the close relatives of the victim, then asking for a quick transfer to alleviate the urgent need. This routine, which has been worn out today, has been proven effective in Japan in the 1980s, after the disintegration of traditional families. Japanese parents are often not very aware of their children's current situation, and the yet-to-be completely severed family ties make them choose to transfer money as soon as possible. In the end, the name is not called, and just say it's me. Then the I cheat that demanded transfers swept across Japan in the 1980s, and outside of this routine, the Japanese also developed disguised lawyers, police, threats of victims, disguised banks and fabricated unpaid bills, disguising rich women, soliciting boyfriends and disguising financial products, carry out various fraudulent methods such as illegal fundraising. The telecom fraud industry in the 80s was still a blue ocean. These newly developed routines, each of these can create a large number of victims. However, as Japan's economic bubble burst in the early 90s, fraud victims can no longer be like they did during periods of rapid economic development. Get out of the shadow of scams quickly. The sustained economic downturn has also led to more and more young people starting to think about telecom fraud. This kind of crooked way, at the end of the last century, telecom fraud has caused great harm to the stability of Japanese society. The Japanese police also had to consider a thorough crackdown on telecom fraud. Since 2000, on the one hand, Japan has enacted a number of new laws against telecom fraud. On the other hand, the Japanese police have joined forces with finance, communications, and other departments to carry out and afford propaganda, and establish a fraud information monitoring network, similar to China's anti-fraud app. Since then, the momentum of fraud in Japan has finally eased. after losing the domestic market in Japan due to police crackdowns. Japanese telecom fraudsters began to look overseas. Prepare to use telecom fraud skills in a bigger China.